Hello, it's Rich Rosen, founder and CEO of Fastcall. And I'm going to talk for a few minutes about inbound call routing. So we'd like to think that Fastcall is lightweight and easy to use, and that is certainly the case for outbound calls. You just click and call, and there's very little setup required for outbound. Inbound is also lightweight and easy to use, though the inbound call routing does require some more setup, and some of these settings around our IVR, which we do cover in another video, and an information page do get to be a little bit more detailed. So in this video, I'm really just going to try to talk about sort of basic inbound call routing. So it does start here with a phone number, and I am logged in to Fastcall admin settings here under phone numbers, and phone numbers come in two flavors here. Verified phone numbers, which are numbers that you own and use as caller ID and do not route inbound calls. So you can use Fastcall without inbound call routing and use your existing phone numbers as caller ID. And if somebody calls you back on that number, they're going to ring back on that phone. So not use Fastcall for inbound call routing. So those are here also. And that setup is easy. You just verify the number. Okay, so for provisioned phone numbers, the numbers are provisioned here, and the provisioned phone numbers are assigned either to a user, and you can filter the assignment here to a user, or to a group. And for this video, let's just talk about user routing. The group routing is used with our IVR, interactive voice response, and the ACD, automatic call distribution. And we talk about that also on another page and in another video. So I have a phone number here. I'm going to pop up here. You'll see provision a new phone number. We will search. In this case, we are going out and we are searching Twilio for phones, and we can do that by country. This is US, and we can do it with using area codes in the US. There's a search function here. I have some advanced search capability. So for example, I can look for toll-free numbers. Phone numbers for Twilio are voice capable, SMS, or both. In the US, I'm pretty sure all numbers are probably both, but that is not true everywhere else. So let's just say we were looking at, Australia. We would be able to pull in. We see here local numbers are voice capable, and here's some that are both. And these are actually considered mobile numbers that are both SMS and voice, but you do want to pay attention to this. And then these mobile numbers are SMS only, so that's important to pay attention to. So we're able to search should be able to search wherever Twilio has phones, and the specific pricing around that you're going to find on Twilio's website, and they do have very detailed pricing. The price of phones varies by country. In the US, it's $1 per phone number per month. It varies. I was actually looking at Australia yesterday. I think it was $6. I'd have to look that up again to double check. So that's the first thing we do. We come in here, we pick a search number, we click the number. We do have a more recent option to add a ringtone country. By default, it would actually be the US. Different countries have different ringtones. These come from Twilio also, so we're just basically telling Twilio, hey, this was an Australian number, and we want you to use the Australia ringtone. And then you would save this. You're adding, if we were adding a interactive voice response, it would be added here. The caller ID settings are here. So this phone number as a provision number can be used as caller ID. Usually is used as caller ID, but not always. And you can decide whether or not you want your users to see that phone number in the widget as caller ID. There might be some instances where you're not using that as an outbound caller ID. So for example, if you were assigning a number specifically for call tracking, you wouldn't want to show that on your app. You may not want to show that on your outbound caller ID. And if you're going to use SMS, you enable that as well. This caller ID setting also determines whether or not you are assigning this number to a user. So when the IVR is not set, the caller ID is going to assign this phone number to a user. So let's pop back over here. I'm not going to provision that Australian number. Let's come back over here and look at an existing number. So here, let's see here, provisioned for users. Okay, so we'll look at this one. So here's a number that we've already provisioned. Again, you'll notice it has voice and SMS capability. I could add some notes. The green country is by default the US, but I could add that. So the IVR routing is blank, but the caller ID is available for Richard Rosen. So this means that this phone is going to ring me, my user, directly. We call this a user phone. It does have SMS enabled, and it is visible in the widget. Okay, so once that phone is assigned to a user, there's really two things that we need to do. The first is the user needs to set up the inbound routing settings, and either the user does that him or herself. In my case, I am the admin and the user, but that's not always going to be the case. Very often will not be. But here I'm going to have to set up my inbound call routing. So I'm going to come over here under my settings as a user. If your user was on her machine, she would do this under her settings. If you are the admin and you needed to access that user's settings, you come down to the user panel here, you pick on that user. So let's say we say it's Camilo, and I say change to user profile. I'm now seeing Camilo's user settings. So if I wanted to set up the inbound routing for this user, I come here, and this is where you're telling the application, it's very important, where you're telling the application um, to route the inbound call. So in this case, it says ring the soft phone for 15 seconds. Um, and if this was empty, the call would have nowhere to go. So you have to tell the call, hey, how am I going to, what am I going to do? Let's go back. I'm going to exit out of Camilo's and I'll just go to my own inbound routing settings. So this is an important step, whether the inbound routing is being set up by the end user directly, and that's very often the case. The end user sets up her own inbound routing, or you're going to do it for them. If you're going to do it for them, you're going to do it through the user panel. That's important. Okay, so now I'm back to my inbound routing. I may have to refresh here because I'm still looking at Camilo. And take a little break here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so inbound routing. Um, there we go. Okay, so the inbound routing here is how I'm going to receive the call. So I'm going to ring. In this case, this is simul ring. So if you have two phones in here, that's called simul ring. I have the soft phone, VoIP, 20 seconds. I can add another phone on here. I could be the soft phone. Oh, let's just actually say so. Mobile phone, no simul ring, 20 seconds. So now in this case, it's going to ring the soft phone and the VoIP phone, which is an IP phone, for 20 seconds. And if that doesn't answer, I'm going to go to the mobile phone for 20 seconds. Now, depending upon how the mobile phone is set up, voicemail. So voicemail is set under user settings. I have the option to enable voicemail, and this is for the end user. This is not for a group distribution. So voicemail is enabled. I set my voicemail here. We now have an option for voicemail transcription to record the voicemail message. And again, your users can do that themselves here under messages. I can record a new message, or the admin can record messages for the org. And these messages are both inbound voicemail messages, outbound voicemail drops, and messages used for the IVR prompts and greetings and whatnot. So the admin can see all recorded messages for the org and whether they're assigned to users or groups, and the user only sees her own messages or messages that belong to groups if that user is a member of that group. Okay, so that's important. So we have our inbound routing. We saw voicemail under user settings. So devices. So devices are phones, right? So the office phone and the mobile phone are coming from your Salesforce user record. So if you have a phone on your Salesforce user record, which is usually 50-50 if you do or you don't, but if you did put your phone on the Salesforce user record, we will pick that up automatically. Then you can add other devices here. And these devices can be used both to receive inbound calls, so it could be a mobile phone, or another office phone, could be a conference room. All these devices can be set to answer inbound calls. They can also be used for outbound click to call. So those are devices. So that's important for inbound call routing. So user settings, devices, inbound routing, user phones. These are the same phones that we looked at before, but assigned to the specific user. So again, these are phones that are either assigned to me as the user or to a group. So these are the phones that are assigned to me or a group where I'm a member. So I'm not going to see any other users' phones here under the user settings, messages we talked about, SMS templates. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about answering the phone in the widget. We're going to put that, we have another video that talks about that. We also have some information that specifically talks about the soft phone. We have video talks about call recording and call transfer. And as I mentioned before, there's just a separate page and video that talks about interactive voice response, which rotates calls to a group of users. The only thing that I'll probably mention here, you do notice in the widget offline status, if the user's offline, they don't receive a call. They have to be available to receive a call. And if they're on an active call, they're not going to receive a call. The only other thing I'd mention, and you may have seen it if you were paying attention, I hope that you are, there is a phone used, there's a setting used for ACD, it's called ACD phone. When we were talking about our inbound call routing before, we showed the simul ring and overflow phones here. This ACD phone is a specific phone used to answer calls on an ACD, and there's only one phone set here. So a user routing for user phones can set up simul ring, overflow, multiple phones. When answering a call in the ACD, there is only one phone, and that's one area that's different. Okay, so if you have any questions, shoot us an email, support@fastcall.com. Hopefully you found this information helpful, and go provision a couple of phone numbers.